what is your source of learning?
I hate to say it, but I love putting myself in more dysfunctional situations.
I also always need to talk things through with someone. Like I'm not a person that can just think internally and come to solutions. I need to like articulate it to others, and that's why I love talking to you all.
I actually want to be there where there is need of help, and like I say, what I've learned about doing that is about myself.
Both mentoring and especially getting a lot of mentoring. I have free and paid, like I pay a lot of money to be in touch with very good people. I love being mentored by people who are like 10 times where I am today.
Raising your hand for, to work with a new team or something that you perceive as probably beyond your skill set.
Not having that arrogance, you just have to be willing to be open, even when you find yourself in those really challenging situations where things are different than you thought.
It's a difference of attitude, Vivek. It's not a difference of mindset so much as attitude. Okay.
Bill Gates said when he said your most dissatisfied customers are your greatest source of learning.
Year 2023 is almost coming to an end. And this is the right time for all of us to reflect upon the year 2023. So to give you all a direction to reflect upon the year, we thought, why not bring a bunch of Agile coaches together and do Agile Coaches roundtable to reflect upon the year in terms of the achievements, the learning, future plan, and how does the future of Agile looks like. It is a long episode, so stay tuned till the end to know them, learn, get different perspectives, and seek directions for your own reflection and future goals. We all had a fun recording the episode, and we hope that you all enjoy the episode as well. So without much ado, let's welcome Marcelo Lopez, Dave Smith, Julie Springer, Patty A, Antoni Zeveles, Michael Lloyd, Petula Guimaraes, and Mark Burwell.
So welcome everyone to ACRT's Agile Coaches Roundtable discussion. So this is our first of such discussions that we are having with so many people, great coaches, and we are really excited to kickstart this conversation. And the theme for this conversation is to just have a retrospective of the year 2023. The retrospective in terms of personal life or maybe professional life, or what we have achieved. And what our learnings and what we can share with our audiences. So it would be a free-flowing conversation, not a pre-planned or a scripted one. And we are not going to edit any of our conversations unless there is a technical issue. So on that note, we can get started. So to begin with, I would want to understand, to begin with, the simple question is, what is your biggest achievement that has been in 2023? Maybe we can start with Michael, with you.
Yeah, sure. I feel like I might be being targeted there. I guess my big win for this year would be dysfunction mapping, right? Which is a pretty cool thing that I'm working on. Oh, Dave is expecting me to talk about my kid, isn't he? Yeah, that was a slightly hello awkward segue. I also had a kid. That was pretty cool. So yeah, I suppose that's two big wins. I always forget that other people are interested in the kid, to be fair. So yeah, I feel like I did all right. He's still alive. He seems pretty happy. But in addition to that, I'm doing some pretty good work with dysfunction mapping. So it's felt like a good year.
Wow, that's a great achievement, I would say, Michael. That's one of the greatest tools that we need. That's the need of the hour, I would say, and great going with that tool. And congratulations on your kid.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm proud of both of them. Dysfunction mapping so far is the harder part, if I'm honest, but we'll see if that stays the same for the rest of the year.
Wait, you're just getting started.
Yes.
Exactly. Just wait.
Yes.
You had two kids this year, Michael. You had two kids. One is the dysfunction mapping, and another is actually your kid.
Yeah, only one of those is probably going to grow up to disappoint me, though. So,
Oh my.
I wonder which.
Yeah. Mike, just a gentle reminder, this is being recorded, right?
oh my.
Yes.
The internet's forever.
Your wife could conceivably watch this.
I'll be all right. I'll be fine, probably, or I'll be dead tomorrow. I guess I'll leave you guys to be my witnesses.
I'm just trying to watch your back. Okay, just trying to watch your back. You're a good friend.
So, Marcelo, would you like to go next? What has
Oh.
been your achievement?
Oh snap! Me and my big mouth. Achievements, just staying alive despite my schedule. You know, just staying
Wow.
alive despite my schedule. I don't know that most folks here on the call know this, but despite being here in sunny Miami, the teams that I work with are literally scattered to the four winds. They're across 11 time zones. I'm the only one in North America. You know, so my achievement, you know, transitioning from working day to day with teams based here in Miami to working 100% remote from every other human being I'm involved with. And what's more, helping them recognize this product initiative that the company decided all of a sudden to do back in March could actually be done with, you know, everyone scattered to the four winds. So, you know, we had to learn a lot of things along the way. You know, demonstration that yes, we don't all have to be in the same room, but it is fun from time to time to be in the same room, and and such. You know, you know, I guess I might say more as we go along, but you know, for me, that's probably the big takeaway for me. You know, hopefully things I share are useful to others who find themselves in the same situation. You know, so, you know.
That's an interesting one, Marcelo. And it's so important, right? If you're dealing with so many people in so many time zones, it becomes so much hectic to deal, to just to find that golden hour, if we may say so that everyone can.
Thank goodness for Excel. we actually set down part of the team formation activities was actually to list out all the different time zones involved and all the places and come to overlap to see what works and what doesn't work. And the fact that this was an application at Scrum at scale, and that part of the Scrum of Scrums, we've got teams in Malaysia and teams in the EU, and to do that scaled sprint review, and how do we do that, and what time do we do that, and what format do we do that, so that the stakeholders aren't rebelling and, you know, coming at us with torches and pitchforks and stuff. You know, and so we've grown to the fact that now, you know, 8 teams can go through a sprint review in less than 2 hours. That's an accomplishment, I think, for us. You know, and that the stakeholders either haven't lost their minds or fallen asleep. So
funny, Marcelo. There's we get these questions often, you know, working across time zones, but we don't actually talk about the challenges that come up with that. But it's not just time zones; it's also cultural differences, right?
We're going to talk about that, are we?
No, but seriously, like this comes up a lot, but we don't discuss it enough. And I think that a lot of people could learn so much from what you have to share.
Well, how much time do you have? but yeah,
feel a post coming on.
Yeah, you feel a post coming on. Yeah, I tend not to talk about the stuff that I'm currently working on in my posts because of the, you know, type of contract that I operate under. But some things that I could share is that absolutely, in the more Eastern cultures, you know, this thing of self-organizing, what the hell is that, Anthony? Self-managing? Excuse me? They're going to what? yes, they're going to put some order to their work and work together to decide how they're going to do it without having to be told.
I would argue, if I could be devil's advocate here, same problems in the US. We are
True.
often told what to do,
True.
and we don't know what to do with that freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Flip it. Exactly. I think
It's
Petula
just
has something
different.
to. Yeah. 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 I think Petula has something to.
I just I saw the opportunity to throw in something from someone I love dearly. I love his work, which is, he is Sumit Mogi, and he came out with his Async playbook this year. And it's just awesome. And I think it's a great, it goes in the same vein, Marcelo, because indeed there are cultural differences. And sometimes the way we look at agility is a little bit sometimes Eurocentric in a lot of ways that we behave, which is not a bad thing. It's neither good or bad. It's just, it's different. And sometimes when we face ourselves with the frustration of this agile thing not working, it has nothing to do with the essence of operating under agility, but misunderstanding those elements. And I love that the Async playbook, even is not even talking about remote or not remote. It's not even necessarily talking culture, but it will tell you that not everybody's in the same space. Antoni is in another province from me. It's still the same country. It's still the same culture-ish. It's still asynchronous. So just want to throw it there. It's the Async playbook. It's I think it's on Black Friday deal, by the way.
Woohoo!
Wow, we're pimping out stuff. So
Wow.
I'm going to take the opportunity then to pimp out one of my secrets of my success. The guy who I actually blame for getting me into this, because I was some low life tech lead back in 2003, and I met him at a Microsoft Developer Days, and he's like, "Hey man, there's this thing called Scrum." I'm like, yeah, and we're using extreme programming. He goes, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, sure, you should check it out. So I blame him, but. And since we're pimping out books, check out From Chaos to Successful Distributed Agile Teams. His name is Mark Kilby, and he partnered with Johanna Rothman, who some of you may have heard of. And he actually helped me out with some of the challenges that I had with some of these folks. And I'll double down on what you said, Petula. Sometimes it's not even that they might be in a different province. Sometimes we've got teams that are even, they are themselves co-located, but you've got 5 different cultures in a team. How's that? 5 different cultures in a team.
Wow.
2 of the teams that I work with are in Kuala Lumpur. And Kuala Lumpur, most folks don't know this per se, but they are an incredible melting pot of cultures over there, where you've got folks from the Middle East, from India, from China, and relatively local to Malaysia, and Thai, Vietnamese, and these are different cultures, and they're all in that melting pot in Kuala Lumpur. So we've had to deal with that variable as well, even though they are actually the only 2 teams that are physically co-located. The only 2. Okay. It's about 18 people that represented 5 different cultures.
Wow.
That's that's another variable that we often don't take into account. So anyways, Ramya, I have taken up way too much time of this podcast. I think it's somebody else should go.
Not a problem, Marcelo. We would love to hear you. Yes, so moving on to Anthony, would you like to share about your achievements of this year?
Sure. I could see it as threefold. The first is really defining my mission and my purpose to spread happiness in the workplace. That's been a big one for me, because I went through a lot of, I guess, a lot of introspection, a lot of coaching, and really dealing with some past trauma that has gotten me to this place where I didn't think I could, I guess, reveal being happy in the workplace. Because I'm very playful, I'm a smiley guy, And a lot of people, when I go into organizations, they're like, who's this smiley guy and what's he up to? Or it's like, oh, give him a month, he'll become, moody like the rest of us.
And they don't know what to do with it, right? I deal with the same thing. And they don't trust it. And you just have to keep going like, no, this is really who I am.
Yes,
So I
exactly.
appreciate what you're saying.
It's like, why is this guy more than over friendly with us?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a big one for me. The second one was an extension of that, which was the happiness blueprint, and developing that, understanding how we can foster happiness in teams, and finding a model that works for basically anyone and everyone, that can give people a better understanding of what type of experiments are we going to run in order to bring happiness to teams. Because, I really dug into the science of positive psychology and others that have studied happiness in the workplace. And it is just incredible on, the amount of people who are disengaged, and I thought we needed to change that, especially after COVID. We've all been stuck in this bubble, and we got to be happy, because otherwise, what are we doing? In the end, we want to be happy going into work. We want to show up Monday and just be true with ourselves, right? So yeah, the happiness blueprint was definitely a big part of it. And the third one was me getting up on stage and talking about this with, a bigger audience. Yeah. So I've never actually got up on stage to talk live in front of people. And I had my opportunity in Lithuania at Agile Tour Vilnius to speak in front of almost 200 people. And for me, that was a huge success. It broke down the barrier of me having to talk to people. I mean, I've done webinars, like dozens of them. So I wanted to take that opportunity to face my fears, and being able to share my mission, the happiness blueprint, and everything that I feel that we need in front of a bigger audience. And so that triggered some other talks, and it also triggered me wanting to speak more to happiness in different areas. So next week, I'm going to be taking the stage in Montreal and doing another talk. And I've submitted this talk to a bunch of different conferences for next year. So I'm hoping to speak more about that. And yeah, this speaking thing is really kind of cool. And yeah, it's really giving me the courage to just get out there and just speak my mind, and show people, that having fun is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Please tell me you submitted your talk to Scrum Gathering North America, Antoni.
I did.
You did?
I did.
Please, let's connect after this. I'm not going to say I'm going to be up to shenanigans, but I mean, it is in New Orleans, and I tend to think that in New Orleans they enjoy having fun.
All right.
So laissez le bon temps rouler.
Okay. So yeah, those
Antoni,
are my biggest achievements this year, and I'm looking to take it up a notch next year, coming out with happiness blueprint workshops, and even going through the expert Agile coaching certification through IC Agile, which is most of us know here is a 9-month cohort of just
minimum.
I'm a glutton for punishment.
Can I
I
just
could
take something that you said, Antoni, and I think the listeners could benefit because you were saying, I've done webinars, now I've gone in person. If you translate that as a Scrum Master, an Agile coach, an Agile person really operating in the team, it is a different setting, a different beast even to be in person and to be remote. And some people only learn the remote or only learn the in person and feel the difference, and that it's okay, it is normal, it's very different, and we show up in different ways, and we see people even in a different ways. There's no camera off in person, and if you say something and my face changes, I can't really hide, and all that kind of stuff. So it is okay.
Yes, it is. It
And
is totally different. Especially when, we're so used to speaking to our teams because we're, comfortable, fuzzy blanket. But when we're speaking to an audience, again, great point, Petula, you can't turn off the camera, which it's kind of like when you say something on social media, you can't unsay it. So people really hear about what it is that you're saying. So you need to be prepared. Before I did my first talk, I mean, I must have said it and done it probably 15 times.
wow.
Yeah. And so when I got up on stage, I had people like, "Oh, wow, you're a natural." No, I just prepared.
It's funny
Yeah.
you mentioned that,
Yeah.
Antoni, because I recently did a dysfunction mapping talk in the Netherlands, and there was a technical issue, and I didn't have access to my notes. And they were like, "Oh my God, is this going to be okay? Like, what's going to happen?" And I'm silently confident because I'm like, "Yeah, I've been through this so many times. It's going to make a difference." So that's just preparation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed, is to actually prepare multiple times, use that preparation, and then just let go. And when you let go, that's when the magic happens. And I just wanted to add another thing about ICAC, which is a certification which you're about to maybe start there, Antoni. I started in August 22. So, and I've just suspended it because it's a lot of work. So
Yes.
9 months maybe. Some can do it in 6. Some can do it in 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. So expect the unexpected, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm blessed to have some great coaches leading me in that cohort, like Marcia Acker and Antoinette Coetzee. So I'm sure I'm in good hands.
And Antoni, it's only going to be a dominoes effect from here. When you said that you started off with, say, one happiness blueprint and virtual one, and then you went to like in person with in person with in front of like so many people,
Yes.
and now that led to some another thing. It's only going to be a dominoes effect from now on, and we are really looking forward for your happiness blueprint uh, cohort or maybe sessions. And we already have a blueprint that Michael has laid, right? So we all have that blueprint the way he did for dysfunction mapping. So it is giving lot of courage to us that we should also come up with something. And it's like every single day I'm like reading the post of your happiness blueprint and dysfunction mapping. I'm like telling Vivek, you know what, we need to do something even more, and we already have so many things, but all the things are left half the way, and we need to complete that loop and get something out. And we should not I mean literally this bunch of people, this group really motivates us to do lot more things. And literally every single day I get up and see that, okay, today someone has did this, let's do something in similar lines, and let's spread some things, let's give to the community something. So we get a lot of motivation and courage and inspiration from you guys. And Antoni, and you also mentioned about you came across this idea of happiness blueprint from I think coming out of a trauma. And there you go. Sharing your vulnerable thing means a lot. That's the first step, I think, that we as coaches, we need to encourage, right? So that shows, it's so okay to be vulnerable so that others also share, be open and trust. You are like extending trust, and others will definitely reciprocate to it. And that's a great idea about happiness blueprint. I know that we just spoke about it last week, and
Yes.
I'm happy that you brought this up over here as well. I'm really happy that you shared that thing with so many people now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, Julie, you have been quiet since long time. Would you like to share your achievement of this year?
So now we have
Sure.
pulled up the introvert over here.
Well, gosh, hoping somebody can relate to this, but after COVID, kind of thought, okay, now there'll be a new normal and I'll be able to be more in control or driving out how I want things to go and work in life. And I would say this year actually didn't go as expected in a lot of ways. So my lesson, like, what is my achievement? I think it's resilience. It's not that it's been a bad year, it's just been challenging, and some engagements that I got involved in and some projects asked something different of me than I thought was what I was going to bring. And I think as a coach, just like, Antoni really like embodying, we ask others to be vulnerable. Well, you have to be vulnerable. So I'm like, okay, I ask others to be able to adapt and understand the problem. And if the problem's different than you thought, then come with a different solution. So that's what this year has really asked of me is, okay, maybe the problem's a little bit different. What can I bring? How can I add value?
Wow. So it's like you're marinating this year to bring something great next year, right? So all this effort will not go wasted for sure. So you are just marinating yourself this year. So don't feel disheartened or feel different that you have not achieved. This is a very big achievement in itself, being resilient, right? That's such an important quality for human beings. So amazing, Julie. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm even hearing
Patty?
preparation for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
what's going to happen, Julie.
Yeah,
Well, I think life brings you what you need to learn, right? So I don't ever take it as the wrong thing happened. I take it from a curious perspective, like, okay, what am I learning from this? And this must be what's needed. And I can't always see the larger plan, but I think if you're open and curious, then you're always learning and growing. And what else would you really want as an end outcome?
Yeah, I
Amen,
hear thee.
sister. Oh my gosh. Is it Sunday? Are we preaching here?
Can I get a witness?
I can hear all the experimenting, and that's what makes me, well, happy, because it's in
Wow.
experimenting, trying things that we are actually going beyond our own actual visual, what's in front of us, and just going out there and trying and doing and learning. So that's what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judy.
Wow. Patty, would you like to go next?
Sure. Well, I think for me this year has been a lot of reflection and a lot of study and learning. And I'm trying, as everybody was talking, I was trying to put my thoughts together. And I think some of this I've said to some of you personally. One of my frustrations that I've bumped into this year in the Agile community is I feel like who is moving the needle forward? Who is adding something new to the conversation? Because, I've been on LinkedIn for about 3.5 years at this point, and I feel like it's the same arguments over and over and over. Who is going to pull us out into a different space and get out of those arguments, right? And we could probably all sit there and list what are the things that people post about that automatically generate argument and rage. And I guess there is a strategy to that, right? When you're a content creator. But for me, I'm always looking, what new idea or perspective can I add to the conversation? And I always find myself tapping back into my previous careers as a science teacher. And Antoni, what you were saying about experimentation and looking at things scientifically, I find I really see things from both perspectives, from both a right brain and a left brain perspective. So that's why in doing some of my talks that I've done recently, bringing in like the concept of Newton's laws or plate tectonics or something to me that's so out of left field, but that's who I am as a person. So I am looking for the people who are also bringing in ideas you don't have to bring them out of left field, but who's contributing something new to the conversation and pulling us away from those typical, I don't even want to say what the arguments are, but so when Antoni, when you were talking about the happiness blueprint and, Michael talking about dysfunction mapping and some of the other folks I see on LinkedIn, you're the real thought leaders pulling us into new spaces.
Absolutely.
And I want to be around those people because it pulls me forward too.
It's very kind of you to say, Patty. I am slightly worried of being considered a thought leader because I can barely keep my own thoughts straight half the time. But
I can attest to that. Oh, sorry, I'm speaking out loud.
But there's a pressure to that, right? Because people are looking to you to say something profound. And I've kind of spent the last 6 months or so thinking, okay, what profound thing can I add to the conversation now? So you do not want to associate yourself with being a thought leader or an influencer, because then it puts you in this place where you constantly have to, I don't know if perform is the right word, but it gets tiring sometimes. And, we all care so much about where the future of Agile and, Scrum and some other things are going, but we don't have all the answers.
We are going to talk about that, Patty.
I think that's a superpower in itself, Patty. The fact that, we're acknowledging that we're human and that we don't have all the answers. And the fact that we're saying that it's okay, that's something that we need to embrace, I think, personally. We always say that, it should be done this way, it should be done this way. But how about just being and just trying stuff out? If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, let's move on. There is no cookie cutter way to do any one thing. And I think that's, being in this community as long as I have, I'm starting to realize that every team is so dynamic. We have different personalities. We have different ways we show up. And if we can accept that and learn how to navigate it, then, I think we're winning.
Absolutely.
I think there's too a lot of power
Julie.
in listening and encouraging what might not be the loudest voice in the room, whether that's on LinkedIn or with a group you're working with, because sometimes the quieter people have insights or fresh ideas or a way to add to it. And so I think part of cutting through that noise and getting past the divisive arguments is really listening and being open to what's the new perspective, what is somebody saying that isn't following the track but might actually be the idea that we need.
And
yeah, and I felt the need to respond, Patty, when you said, thought leaders. Can I offer this, and please hear me out? I don't see any of you as thought leaders. I see you as practitioners, because an idea anyone can have, and they are pie in the sky. And does it really translate to something that is being done successfully with the team and their leaders? And there's a lot of people blabbering. Like LinkedIn it can be a very nice place and a very dark and sometimes even superficial place. A lot of people there, they are influencing. I'm not sure how much they are practicing. So LinkedIn is not real life, but I do understand that, the impact that it brings. So I definitely hear your sentiment in there. But I always find that if we ground ourselves in it, we are practitioners. Let's look at other practitioners, and there's a lot of rich stuff going out there that's not happening and not being broadcasted on LinkedIn. And maybe you should or not, but I guess just reminding ourselves of that, and I guess establishing the connections, and that stuff that happens in DMs that are way more relevant than what happens in the threads that we see there.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. I think. I mean, I also most of the time I see is like maybe LinkedIn is one place where people come, they share their thoughts, and but beyond LinkedIn, there are still people who are practicing, who are doing it the right way, or maybe I won't call it right way. They're doing it in a different way, but they are not coming and sharing it. So there is also a world beyond LinkedIn, and I think that is where we also need to go and look into.
Right. And I echo Patty's and Petula's emotion over here. And I think all of us, we are doing our bits in whatever way we could in our capacity to maybe bring out what we are, maybe what our thought process is. So we don't want to maybe tag ourselves, be it a thought leader, be it an influencer, be it a practitioner, whatever we want to call. It's like similar debate, right? Is Scrum Master a good title or not? So let's call us whatever we want to call. But the more important thing is that we are contributing to this community, and I mean, let's take a pat on our backs. And all of us are doing a great job over here. And all the efforts that we're putting in to in terms of content creation is to just spread what is the right thing to do, or what should be the way forward, and not get into the trap of any mechanical ways of doing things, right? And as Antony mentioned, let's be there and do it, and whatever works for us is what we should be doing, and not follow any one particular cookie cutter way of doing things, right? Thanks, Patty, for bringing that up. And Petula, I really appreciate your point of adding your perspective. And that's the reason why we have you all, to get different perspectives on the same thing. I think we are yet to cover Mark and Dave. So, Marco, would you like to go next? And I know that you have so many achievements, so we want one achievement.
Dave, is it okay if I go next? Yeah, okay, that's great. Well, no, actually, I haven't had many achievements. It may look that way. I think the biggest achievement that I had is actually experimenting with evidence-based management by myself, on myself, and learning about strategic goals and actually how they actually help us go for what we want to go for. And because some of these goals are ambitious and some of these goals are less ambitious, and we get to them sometimes and then we don't, but it's that empiricism that enables us to actually see that and then be able to make the decision. And on the strategic goals, I mean, I've just had to reorder it all around and say, to this year I've tried. Next year I need to actually think about how I'm going to adapt. And so what have I achieved? Well, what have I failed? I mean, ICAC, I'm suspending it because it's just too long. There's too much work. There's too much effort. And there's also a situation that has arisen that makes it a deadline. And I've become into the deadline. It's too short. And I can't actually adapt to that. I can't just drop everything that I'm doing and then just finish it off in the next couple of months. No, I can't. And that was an unexpected. But you have to embrace the unexpected and inspect and adapt. And the ICAC has actually also given me the opportunity to actually go on the journey of going to ICF and becoming a professional coach, and ICF PCC. In fact, actually, I'm actually at the PCC level already, and I just need to finish off a few things and it's done. And so I'm sort of like looking forward to actually having that recognition of actually being able to coach people up and coach people down. And that is really just really enjoyable. It's also, I mean, what I got out of ICAC was not the certificate, so I don't care about that, because what I really got out of it is actually learning about myself. Wow. And that was powerful. And so these learnings that I've made this year, okay, since August last year, have been really incredible. And so, yeah, I'm still going for my PST, but hey, What will come up? And Mike keeps saying that, you know, give up the BST. It's okay. That's suitable for Mike and his situation. And in the end, I'm still going for my PSM3. I'm still going for my PST. And the reason is because I want to learn. It's a goal. It's the goal that helps me go forward. But then I will still inspect and adapt because I've learned more about my goals. So that's great. And then I started my business this year. A bit like Antoni started his brand, I started my brand as well, Stay Amazing. So, and my business is just me. And inside my business is just better Scrum. Okay, a bit like Mike actually has brought this dysfunction mapping, which has really taken off, and I'm really happy for that. And I can't wait to actually share that with French people and other people around the world and help Mike out when he has time. But I'm bringing better Scrum to the world. And what is better Scrum? Just simply, actually, what I see in the industry is that we have discipline type of certificates and training, and that helps us to actually be a person in a role, in a job, in whatever, and that's great. Okay, however, what's missing is actually getting a deeper understanding of empiricism, theory, and Scrum. And better Scrum is to make that little bridge, to make that little step outside of the Scrum mechanical, to actually see a little bit under the iceberg and open up the eyes, such that people will actually say, oh, I didn't realize that Scrum was that. I didn't realize there was more to Scrum than that. So better Scrum is to build bridges to get to the other side such that you can actually see Scrum from a different perspective, and then you're unleashed. That's the idea. So, and the success of that is that I did my third module this year, finished it off, I experimented it, and it just was amazing. I don't know if anybody came that was here. You didn't, I don't think. I've just looked at all the faces, and you're wonderful people, wonderful faces. But the amount of people that came, I was just so glad that it actually helped them actually see Scrum a different way. And
yeah, Mark, if I might pause you for a second, because I know Julie is just dying to say something. I'm going to say something really quickly. Forgive me for saying this, but for someone who said that they didn't accomplish anything, you've accomplished a whole heck of a lot.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry,
Exactly.
man. I'm so sorry. I'm listening to this and I'm saying, does he realize how much he's actually gotten done this year?
yes, I
I don't know.
do.
Maybe he just needs
but
that tiny little nudge, you know. And before I shut up, I'm just going to say, you know, perhaps you might consider an alternative path to being a trainer, and rather than becoming a PST, becoming a CST. That's my small advertising for this entire podcast. I'm not gonna say it, but I have a way of turning PSTs into CSTs, and so I just leave that for your
Speaking of those
consideration.
LinkedIn
that's
arguments
a great
that we want to
addition.
avoid.
Thank you. Julie, you wanted to add something.
Sure, I'll agree with Marcelo. Amazing accomplishments, so congratulations. And just wanted to ask a question about your amazing Scrum, and who is your primary customer or audience, and why? Like, is it more for the team members themselves? Is it more that Scrum Master role, or is it more toward people who are managers or executives in the org? Like, who are you targeting with those insights?
I think quite simply is anyone in a Scrum team and anyone around the Scrum team, because in the end, the idea is that people get to see a different way than the mechanical Scrum and go beyond that to actually be able to actually emanate that around them, whether it be inside or out. Because in the end, it's like Word. Nobody gets a training course on Word, but you've got to do it. And the problem is that all this responsibility falls upon the Scrum Master. This is what I felt. And they have to teach, train, mentor, do this and that with everybody. And they have to deal with that. I wouldn't call it resistance, because resistance is futile. I'll call it that people don't understand what it's going to bring to them. And so they actually don't resist the change. They don't resist it. They just don't see it. And because of the fact that I was a crappy Scrum Master before, and I know what it's like to be a crappy Scrum Master. So I know how useless I was before, and now I know how useful I can be today. So it's like people are on their journeys and they have to go through the motions. It's okay to be a Scrum Master at 25 years old and not have any experience. It just means that you're going to bring something else to the table and you need to be enabled. Okay. Everybody says it needs experience, it needs technical experience, it needs this, that, and the other. I've got 35 years experience and I'm very lucky to have that. And I think there's a lot of people here that have all that experience. And it's not the number of years, it's what you've learned on your journey. And even through the failures, I've had 30 years of failures. So, you know, I've learned a lot. So this is what it's about. And so Better Scrum is teaching you Word a different way. It's the same as teaching you Scrum a different way, so you can see below the iceberg and see a Scrum different. It's just a bridge builder. So at the moment, I'm actually giving it around the world to actually get thing. I've actually, it's interesting you mentioned that because I've just started as a university teacher for Master 2 students. And they want me to do innovation projects management. And I've done 2 days so far, and the next 8 days are coming up until end of July. And I've actually fitted in everything that I can to completely disrupt their way of working. And I've just got feedback from the manager, from the students. And it really warms my heart because when you know that you're making a difference to people's lives and you're actually helping them to actually enable them to get into the professional world, that is where my goal is working to actually cause change for the future. And it's the beginning. I started one university. I think it's going to take off. And so Better Scrum is in there. Evidence-based management is in there. Kanban is in there. Paradigms is in there. Everything is in there to give them the little keys to actually take on this world that is in this like state that is never actually really getting there. It's always in this limbo state of like territorial, like the agile world is taking some territory, and then there's the actual industrial paradigm that is taking back, and it's this little war of pull and tug of war that's happening, and it's not happening, and it's been 20 years, but it's okay because what we've learned enables us to actually move forward. And I think a lot of people are working at the top, they're working down in the middle and everything. And I think that actually working at the bottom is going to be a longer term, actually more capable goal. So keep going because we need to keep that territory, keep actually getting that territory, keep moving things forward because in the end, we're all working at different levels and that's great.
Oh, I haven't.
There you go, Marco.
Not much at all. No. University courses and
That's the very same reason I said him that only one achievement, and look at him and he's saying that I've not achieved anything significant. Marco, great going. And I knew about this university thing. I knew about amazing, Stay Amazing. And that's the reason why I knew that there are so many things that you can talk about. And look at you being humble and modest, saying that I have achieved nothing. And you have so many such a big list of achievements just in 2023. Imagine.
Thank you. It is a lot of things that I've done, but like I say, it's more so what I've learned, and I've learned a lot because I'm not working full time in a job. I'm sitting at home working, doing my thing. And so I have a little bit more time than others. And so I'm investing where I feel that I can help out. And that's it. And everybody should understand what I said before, which is everybody's contributing at different levels. And it's okay. It's okay if you're doing lots here and less here, and it's doing less there and lots here. Whatever it is that you're doing, it doesn't matter. We're all contributing to this infinite game.
Absolutely. Stay amazing, Mark.
Yeah. More reason for me to convert him from a PST to a CST.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add to that, if that's okay, Marcelo, because actually my Better Scrum is actually taking off, and I've got 2 partners. I've got one actually locally, and I've got one that's actually global. a global partner that is coming up. So Better Scrum is actually going to be next year much more available to businesses, to companies, to anybody that actually needs to actually start a journey, and it will be part of their overall package because they need Scrum. And so there's things happening. And so, you know, if I don't become a PST, I don't care. But if I do become a PST, then I'll start doing scrum.org courses. It's okay. I just know that I can train anything.
Wow.
There you go.
Okay, Dave.
Oh, over to me. I have to say, when I joined the chat, I suddenly I got hit by a pang of imposter syndrome. I kind of felt like a kid that was able to eat at the adults' table. And I think, despite the fact I'm probably older than most of you, kind of think, yeah, Ram, yeah, I will be on my best behavior, I promise. But it is great to see so many people here. And part of the reason why I need to say that is because I'm probably the only one here that isn't a Scrum Master, which is a bit strange. I'm accredited as one, but I'm not actually an SM. Nonetheless, this hasn't really been about Scrum. It's been about what do we do in 2023. So just to want to clock back slightly, there was a turbulence at my workplace back in 2022 when there was some merging of brands. And soon after that, my co-trainer and then my team leader and then my SVP all left within a short period of time. So I was left kind of catching things. And I thought, should I stay or should I go? And I thought, no, I'm going to stay. If I am going to go, I'm going to, yeah, I thought there's going to be a Clash reference there, wasn't there? Okay, but I thought if I do go, then what I want to do is make sure there's going to be a seamless handover, because I don't want all of the work that we've done over the last several years just crumble because nobody knows how to do it. So I was actively recruiting internal new people. So I also found I had to cross several teams, several brands. And the big thing that I understood is that when a new company approaches you, there's a lot of people in one area of the company that has no clue what the other side of the company is doing. So you've ended up with 5 different teams that all come to you with exactly the same requirements. And you think, well, if you'd have got your heads together, then you could have come to me with one. But I found I was end up having to manage or organize the communication that they should have had going on between them. And what's strange is that this company that's joined us are actually telling us that we're going to be more agile. So they started by including timesheets. Great. Okay, just what I wanted. So this is carried on into 2023, and I've kind of left hole in the ball, but I'm quite enjoying it because in some ways it's been a challenge of, can I actually get around and do all of this stuff? And I find we've been working a lot smarter rather than harder. And coming back to what Mark said, it's taught me a few things that I didn't realize about myself, that actually I'm a lot more flexible and open than I expected, because I was able just to take a lot of things on the chin and just run with them. And I realized for a number of years, it's always been, I mean, I think Marcelo's had the same situation. When you're much younger, you find things to blame and things to complain about. When you're older, you find ways of fixing it. And you don't waste time complaining. You just progress. You want to advance. You want to shift that needle, you know. So it's, let's not spend time arguing about it. Let's just get on and do it. And that's kind of had been a mentality, and it's just worked. Okay. Now, so number one, there's been a lot of the work turbulence. Number two, there's been a family emergency, and I've had to, it's just still ongoing, and I've had to be dealing with a lot of the authorities. And I've come to realize that they're not as agile or as organized or structured or useful as they believe. So it's just bloody endless form filling, losing information, having to tell 5 different people exactly the same thing, and then remind another 3 that they were told that in the first place. But every time I'm gritting my teeth and just punching the wall and saying, yes, we will do that quite nicely. But, you know, you do have to put up with a lot of this bureaucratic stuff. Sorry, Mike, you got a comment there?
I just think it's interesting that you've learned this year that the government is not agile, which is a surprise to no one, I imagine.
Christ, they're not, are they? No, now you come to mention that. What a revelation. I never spotted that.
You know, they are listening, right? And immediately everything goes quiet, exactly as they planned it.
Is that why there's a couple of guy reps coming outside my window at the moment? Somebody's swinging with both boots.
Yeah,
But a duck. But actually, what coming back to something Mike and actually Mark mentioned as well, because I've been in the training industry for a number of years. I have been around a number of places, and I do tend to feel that a lot of government places are quite unagile, a bit rigid, a bit process focused or metrics focused. And you find it in many places, but I'm pleasantly surprised when I go to one place and I actually find they've got quite a flexible mindset. They actually want to get on and do stuff. And I think, you're not a proper government department, are you? You're not bureaucratic. You just want to get on and do shit and get it done. I thought it's quite unusual and refreshing to see it some places. But yeah, you got to take the rough with the smooth, and you've got to learn to work within the system. You can't change a system overnight, but you've just got to accept that's the way in which a system is. How do you best exploit it to your own advantage and get stuff done? Okay, and I have found it's not the system, it's finding the right people within the system and talking to the right people and talking to them correctly and getting them on side, and suddenly they will move mountains. So it is a bit about who you know, not what you know. Okay. Now, I suppose what I think is a big achievement, but I'm going to take a leaf out of Mark's book with this. I think this is going to be a bit arrogant for me to call it achievement, but I still feel it's one nonetheless. From about 2018, 2019 onwards, I was mentoring various people, and that's increased a bit since lockdown. And I've gone to meet a number of people, and I really enjoy talking to them. I think they call me their mentor, but I don't always see myself as a mentor now, because I learn a great deal from them. I just see it as being counselling or chatting or discussing. Now, I also found, as just come back to something Antoni mentioned, I found I was just recalling anecdotes, telling them what sort of things I did, and they were just hanging on every word. And they said, "You've got all this experience." And I thought, what you really mean is I've spent 30 years of making the same fuck ups that you're about to make now, and you're going to learn from me. And that's really what experience is about, isn't it? And we've all failed miserably. We've all learned from it. And I'm really glad that these people can learn just from my background and take stuff from it. I'm not telling them how to do it. I'm just telling them what I've done and why it actually went terrible, or what I learned from it. But I've actually seen them grow. And I think for me, a mark of success is actually hearing that some of them have gone to become mentors themselves. That for me has been a big thing. You know, the thing about leaders grow other leaders. I think it's the same thing for mentors. And I know, look, to the world, you can be one person, but to some people, you are their world. You just guide them and show them the way, and suddenly they achieve so much. And I'd like to say, well, I was instrumental in that, but maybe it's a bit like being a proud parent to see some of those people go on and do great things and grow. And I think it hasn't been wasted. You know, they deserved the chats with me, because you can see how well they've done. But the final thing I'll come back to is something that Mark reminded me of about trying for something doesn't necessarily mean you will be successful, but it will mean you'll advance. It will mean you'll grow and learn something as a result, even if it's not perfect, even if you didn't get to the end. And it is about learning from your failures, but also learning about what you did. And if you don't do it, you'll learn nothing. And I think, based on what he said, maybe we ought to think a bit more about what I've learned myself, or learn about myself, rather than what I've learned for other people. Okay, so that's basically me. I'll shut up now.
Wow. Dave, I liked what you mentioned, that it's like people whom you mentor have become mentors, and they have learned from listening to what you have done and what your experiences have been, right? And that's the attempt from us to bring all of us together to just share our experiences so that other people can learn and they can get something out of this conversation. And that's the reason why we say, when Dave speaks, everyone listens. So you have got so many good things to talk about, that all of us, there was a point where almost all of us were having some or the other heart reactions when you shared stuff. So amazing points, Dave. I think Petula, your achievement.
I'll try and make that quick to save us all the time that we can. So I was really, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, what do I say that is really, it's going to help our ACRT audience? The first thing I guess I want to say is that, so I work with both individuals, but I also work with organizations. So I'm in the trenches a lot. And I think, whether we're talking new Scrum Masters, new coaches, or non-denomination people who support agility out there, the first lesson I would love to share is to start looking at resistance as the friend who leaves the clues. The resistance is usually the place where you need to lean in to actually make a dent and start helping the, whatever the agility in the place to start going. From simple things like resisting how people really hate retrospectives, and instead of just going and teaching you all the love that you have for retrospective, then here's how you do it and nobody will care. How about spend more time leaning in that, okay, what do you even think it's a retrospective? What are the things you don't like? And learn first and then intervene second, or probably even last. Another thing is, I will brag because this client deserves it. It's a client who just who has the opportunity to save just under $1 million Canadian in their business. And we looked at a lot of things in the workflow. And I would encourage any Scrum Master, any coach out there to think about how are your client really being supported and helped by you, like in what ways. I'm just throwing a number here, which is how they were working their QA with their dev, and they basically had no need for how they were running their QA. So are you really looking at impact when you come in and you support your clients? Because sometimes we think our job is, especially as a new Scrum Master, we come in, we teach the Scrum thing, and and actually that leads me to the third learning, which is there is no room for that anymore. I've been around the block for over 25 years, and I would say it is becoming very, very juicy, as in there's a lot of great jobs, but the jobs are demanding a lot more from us now in the realm of agility. And you will find, you can quote me on that or not. Let's see, my predictions usually pan out. I see a lot of us either having to become very comfortable as being consultants, the Agile coach, the Scrum Master. You come in, it can be a 2-day laser coaching. It can be a 1-year, let's put, rally the team together, but it is a temporary thing and it's a good thing. And there is no shortage of job, but you probably won't stay that long. So don't get so comfortable. For those of you who want to stay longer and make maybe a career in an organization, all those skills are still great, but maybe you are not looking for a Scrum Master or any, agile nomenclature job position. Maybe you want to be the local line manager. It's really in the lateral aspects of the organization. As a change manager, you can find a lot of room and create a lot of impact. So pay attention to that a little bit, because sometimes it's not as obvious. You're looking for something that not even, it doesn't exist anymore. And those kinds of positions for Scrum Master, as we knew before, they are changing, they are shifting. And last but not least, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I'll just put a teaser out there. I do have a very specific way on how I look at agility, and it's a no framework way. And I decided to give it a name, and I baptized it Simple Agile, because it is simple, and you can expect to be hearing a lot more about it next year. And and I'd love to to collaborate with everybody who's interested in knowing more about it. And I think it's just to close this, if you can, I would go back to what Patty said, I think, in the beginning. It's the what is it that you're we are feeling a lot of things when you go in places like LinkedIn, and and these things seem like the reality of the world, but they are the front end of the stuff that we see. And our real lives are happening in the back end. And you are in the client or clients, you are in a company, you're looking for a job or learning or doing this training. Trust that and network a lot, and make very organic and real connections, and learn as much as you can from the reality of it. There's a lot of theory. I love that Patty brought that in. There's a lot of theory and science behind what we do in Agile. There's a lot of woo-woo and blah, blah stuff that people say that makes no sense out there. There is good theory, and without that good theory, you don't have a solid footing, and that's why probably you're feeling a little bit of that imposter syndrome sometimes. So I'd love to, Patty, I'll leave an invitation here if you ever want to have some chat about that, and something that we can help people understand a little bit more. And use your perspective. But I feel like this is something really important, is maybe we'll stop looking at the front end of people and comparing to our back end, because that that makes it really hard. I'm pretty sure 2023 was a year where everybody learned, everybody had beautiful lessons to share, and sometimes you might feel like we don't. Not everybody needs to be like me and Antoni. I think we are like a glass 3/4 full all the time. But you always have something, if you really look closer and do the Julie introspection, with the year of interest, do those things, and you probably have something beautiful and significant in your career that you can proudly share. And I hope you do share. So thanks for inviting us here, Ramya and Vivek.
No problem. So many points, Petula. So it's like, where do I even begin talking about? So one thing that caught, I think, most of us attention is that no framework agile, or maybe what I like to call it as framework agnostic agile. And that is what I have at least decided. that going forward, at least in next year, that is what I'm going to talk more about. Enough of any framework, be it Scrum or whatever we may call safe, or we are not even going into that discussion of bashing any frameworks, but uh, just pure agile. And no, framework agnostic agile is what we are doing. We are planning to do, and we are trying to do something about it. Personally, that is what we are. We have taken a break of say 10 days or so, and that's the introspection that we were doing ourselves. And yes, there would be a lot of podcasts on that topic as well. So I'll not keep Mike raising for the hand. Yes, over to you, Mike.
No, so I literally wanted to kind of carry on that same thing because Petula, I love almost everything that you said there, and I think I also have been thinking about this non-frameworky agile thing, and I've been building content that I call
Wow.
universal agile coaching. And I guess the thing I'm sensing here is there's probably a big collaboration opportunity for some of us that are in this room, because my view of
Yes.
it is about how do we help people learn how to be effective agile practitioners without wedding themselves to a framework. And I imagine that ties in with what both Petula and Ramya are saying. And the second thing I just wanted to kind of add, because again, it ties to what you were saying, Petula, is I think there's a lessening demand for Scrum Masters and Agile practitioners of the kind that we used to have. My view is that that's because actually a lot of those people are not particularly effective, or at least not able to demonstrate their effectiveness, and it's created a lot of skepticism for the role, which is why I've done so much with dysfunction mapping and other things to try and help people get better at creating real outcomes and demonstrating it. But I think the thing that leaves for us as like a community of people that cares about improving practice is, how do we come up with approaches and tools that actually allow people to solve problems rather than just applying theory? And obviously, Antoni, you mentioned the happiness blueprint, which is one really great example. I think, Mark, you've built a lot of that into your Better Scrum as well. These are the things we should be looking for, right? Is problem solving tools, not just problem description tools, which is what I think a lot of the agile frameworks often fall into, even if it's not their intention.
Wow, I love that, Michael, so much. I mean, the point that you mentioned, problem solving tool versus problem describing tool, amazing point. And I can say from the place that I've been talking. I mean, I spoke about this with Antoni last week itself, and I've been working in my organization. Maybe not just with teams, with people above the teams or leadership teams, and especially to train or maybe get people in the leadership team understand this space of agility or agile leadership. And I've been talking to a lot of project managers to get their perspective and what is their school of learning or what is their school of thoughts in this scheme of things. And that blew my mind. I mean, that's where I thought that forget about any framework, or let's not talk about framework. Let's try to solve people's problem. Let's try to bring in that thing that will work for the people and that will work for the customers, or maybe that will work for the organization. It doesn't really matter what framework you choose, whether you do it or not. And that's when we thought maybe when you go beyond teams is when you understand all these things. I mean, and I completely agree on your point that people have degraded the quality of work. That is the reason why we see that less opportunities for Scrum Masters and Agile practitioners in today's day and age. Vivek, over to you.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I mean, what no, you and Mike, you both were talking in terms of being effective as a Scrum Master. Also, the other thing I look, if I want to look at from the other way, is maybe the opportunities that we have and the number of people who would wish to become a Scrum Master are more, and that is the reason I think that is a huge amount of gap being created. And again, that's one of the other reasons also. Obviously, the one of the primary aspect or the primary reason is how effective we as a Scrum Master are. That number might be very high, but the second reason behind that would be also the the supply and demand over here, as it was maybe a few years back, and now it might be the different situation altogether. And since we are on that topic, and maybe I would like to extend to the other part over here is in a recent conversation, Jim Smith recently posted that a few of the authors or maybe the co-creators of Agile Manifestos where they're discussing about the need to reimagine Agile in the true sense. I mean, would you like to talk about what is your take on that? I mean, if you guys want to talk or maybe bring up your perspective to it, maybe again, Mike, if you want to start off with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the worry that I have immediately when we start talking about the new Agile is that Agile wasn't even the new Agile. Like it was a description of a bunch of practices that a lot of really smart people had worked together to find and then articulate when they got together. And I think any deliberate attempt to create some new version of that is just kind of doomed to fail. For me, I think we should be, and I think I can't remember who said it, but very near the beginning of our discussion, someone talked about it might have been Patty, what's emerging out there right now, what are the new things that are being added to the conversation. And I think that what will eventually happen is a bunch of these things that people are finding success with will come together and form a new set of patterns that we can kind of re-articulate. And I would love it if dysfunction mapping was a part of that, or if something that I do is a part of that. But as I've said to people even who come to my training, right, is I actually don't care if people use dysfunction mapping. The thing that I want them to learn and to take away is that critical approach to problem solving that's grounded in empiricism. And as long as they get that, forget dysfunction mapping. And I think for me, that's probably going to be this version 2 of Agile, right? It's just a re-articulation of empiricism, critical thinking, creative problem solving, and something that's even more rooted in the complexity of highly unknown emergent kinds of work. And I suppose that was my very long and wordy way of saying I don't know, and I guess we'll see.
Yes, absolutely true. And you never know, maybe yes, dysfunction mapping might be one of the key elements. Let's hope for the best. Yeah, that might happen. Okay. Julie, you would like to add anything to that?
Well, it looks like Antoni had something, so I'll let you go, Antoni, if you do, and then I have a thought.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I had a thought, and I think Petula was right on the money, where we have to stop looking at using all of the buzzwords, not walking into organizations saying, oh, well, we're going to try to be agile. Well, instead, let's look at being curious. Let's look at listening. Let's look at better communicating and better collaboration. And these are the things that are, in my opinion, the foundation of agility. And we don't even have to say it. Like, I mean, the A word has now become, a nasty thing. And I don't think it represents us as practitioners, what we really want to do as change agents. And so I feel that the future of this community or domain has nothing to do with the buzzwords itself. It has to do more with the values that we come with as those change agents.
Absolutely true. Yeah, Julie, would like to go ahead?
Yeah, that's so powerful, and just want to build on that. I think a lot of the frustration with Agile and why sometimes it's a dirty word for people is because they feel like we're coming with a solution and then forcing everything to fit the solution we're already coming with. And I think we need to be careful. I love the no framework thing. Like, I think there's a lot of power there and reason for that. We need to be careful not to turn that into the new thing where it's like, now my solution is there's no framework, and just stay open and explore what's possible if there's no framework, and how does that work and how do we get value out of that. But also, I think the most important thing is come and understand, what problem are we trying to solve? What does success look like? And then how do we start working together with better ways of working to get there? And we're going to have patterns and things that we followed. And in some contexts, in some environments, a framework, at least in the short term, is going to be the thing that's most helpful and called for. So if we're just like, it can't be frameworks because there's been frustration with frameworks, then we might be missing part of what works in a certain environment.
I'm sorry.
I'll build on that. true, Julie, because when you said, you said the keyword patterns, and I think that's probably what every smart person out there practicing Agile will notice is that the important thing is notice that there are beneficial patterns and that there are patterns that just won't help. I don't like the word anti-pattern, but there are patterns that are just not helpful. And to your point, you can only know what is helpful or not once you first have a clear destination. It's a lot nice to think like, well, you find your way, but organizations don't work this way. Try and have your own company and figure out my company will find a way. That could work if you're, maybe you can work for a hobby. But if you have a company who needs to achieve results, you need a little bit more structure. So the patterns that come into play, I think that's probably the thing. And Mike, maybe with this function mapping or with the happiness blueprint, these are patterns that we start noticing and we keep expanding on. And I think that will solve for the structure. And yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you're going to be having the what is autonomy? It's total freedom, or it is like people get lost too if you don't give anything. Like just remove my grounding and give me nothing. So, but it's just we need a different way of thinking that is not like, yeah, here is Agile 2.5 or this just doesn't make any sense, and it was never the intention in the first place. I think Mike said it best, so I won't overstay my welcome.
I was going to quickly add to that, if you don't mind, just because some of you may already know that I like to annoy everyone on both sides of an argument. And so while I can sit here and agree and say that the no frameworks view is great and agnostic agile, I love all that. Something that I think Julie said that about frameworks can be a good starting point reminds me of something that also gets me in trouble on the internet, which is even safe would actually be an improvement if properly implemented in many organizations, because that's just how low level the bar is in a lot of places, right? And I know that's going to annoy a lot of people, but I guess the point there is it's not just about utopia, it's about where are you now and what can you do that will make things a little bit better. Sometimes that's a framework, sometimes it's something completely new and creative. Most of the time it's some combination of those two things, and that I think is kind of what we need to all keep in mind when we start yelling at each other about frameworks.
Completely agree on that. Patty, would you like to add?
I was just going to say I'm laughing because I'm with you on that, right? And it's almost like I've stopped getting involved in all of these arguments because I don't want to be crucified by the Agile community for saying I'm just tired of that, right? But I agree with you, and I've said that publicly on LinkedIn. Sometimes safe is the place where you've got to start. Do I love it? Maybe not. But is that going to help that company move the needle in the direction that they need to go in terms of agility? That might be it. And maybe we don't stop there and that's where we keep going, but there we are. We're arguing about
feel
things.
your frustration. I feel your frustration. And I've tried that a few times, in fact, a few times more than I care to admit. And it is painful, and I really, I'm going to say it this way. I love what you just said because it reminds me that sometimes our inbuilt crustiness needs to get removed as well, because we're all a shape of our past experience, whether we like to admit it or not. We are that. It is what it is. And that's what we're dealing with too with organizations. They are what has their experience led them to be. And maybe sometimes, Mike, the bar is low. And sometimes safe is where they need to start, Patty. You're right. You're absolutely right. And for those of us who, quote unquote, I would say it this way, may know a little better, sometimes, and I'm going to quote Benjamin Franklin, sometimes can we not doubt a little bit of our own infallibility and consider where are they? Where are they? And I'm going to apply it this way. Heal or heal thyself. I could use a little bit of that myself too. So thank you for that, Patty. And now I've made everyone quiet. That's exactly what I wanted.
Preaching, brother. Preaching.
Dave, would you like to add? Dave, would you like to add?
Oh, sorry. It's one of those you're on mute times again, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, that's me and technology. We're never great bedfellows. I hear a lot. Actually, I'm not going to say a great deal more that hasn't already been well covered by the comms that have previously gone before. I know when people talk about what is the state of Agile, the honest answer is, do we care? It's not really about state of Agile, it's about the state of companies and businesses that we're trying to help. And achieving agility isn't really a noble goal. I think before Agile, there was ITIL. Before ITIL, it was Prince. Before then, there was UML, SSADM. There's a whole pile of stuff, which was the wonderful fad. And it's that cargo cultism of, we've got some problems, but let's throw Prince at it. Magically, all the problems will be solved. So we get Prince consultants in, or should I say McKinsey. We spend a huge amount of money, and the problems are still there. You know, they've left with our money, but we've still got this huge steaming pile in front of us that we thought, hang on, weren't they supposed to take this away with? What are we supposed to do with this? What did the consultants say you do with it? Let's have a meeting about it. Oh, bloody, we just completely missed the point. Okay, now, sadly, I'm going to pick a McKinsey with this one, but it's not necessarily just them at fault. There are a large amount of people out there peddling to a demand. If there's a demand for certification, for Scrum, for Agile, for yada, yada, there will always be charlatans pulling out the snake oil, ready to jump on the bandwagon. And it's those people that have actually given Agile a bad name. So when people talk about how poisonous a name it is, no, there's a huge group of people that have actually sold non-Agile to these people, and it's been a poison, and it's corrupted a name, and I think it's just safer to ditch the Agile name completely. Now, I did mention a note in the chat about some of the most successful organizations out there that I've been to, where they've got good working practices and never actually mention ITIL. And then other people that are so intent about, we need to bring it in, we need to do the following. Well, the first question is, what is the problem you're trying to fix? And they don't actually know that. And I think, Matty, you highlighted this problem as well as Julie. Look, we've got to try and understand the problems. At the moment, you're in one place and you want to move to another. Why do you want to move there? And why do you think this particular thing is going to move you from A to B? If it moves you part way, is that still a success? You know, we've tried, but and as Marcelo pointed out, if some people are so far back that something like SAFe or even a Scrum study course is going to advance them more, you've got to understand, why do they dip so far below the waterline to get into that stage where, yes, I prefer to eat something poisonous to feed me because I'm that hungry. You know, they shouldn't be in that position, should they? So my feeling, should Agile improve and mature? Well, there's been attempts. There's been Agile 2. There's been a whole pile of other things around. But I think we should get away from a company wants agility, they want Agile, this is their goal. They should really be coming up with what is the problems. And I had a discussion with this earlier. I think a lot of job descriptions are all about, we think this is a solution, when really they should just be describing the problem. You know, it's the XY problem all over again, isn't it? They think we need this thing. We're going to interview somebody to put them in there and misguidedly follow our terrible plans. No, really, you just want to say, here's a problem I've got. Can you come in and fix it? So let me bring this guy called Marcelo and explains what the problem is, and then let him propose something. Let's try this with Antoni. Let's try this with Mike. You know, tender the problem out. Let you have a discussion with them and then understand, well, how could they advance me? And just take those ideas. By doing that, we're hopefully getting that business, that organization to open their minds to possibilities rather than rigidly fixate on, we've got to have SAFe within December the 1st. It's got to be done. You know, that you've seen those kind of posts, haven't you? Okay. Every month. Oh, Petula, I feel your pain.
Wow.
The problem, Dave, as well with what you just said is, like, most companies won't even put the salary range on the job ad, and we're expecting them to be open about what their challenges or dysfunctions are. So I think we might be in for a long wait on that one.
Yeah, especially when they say minimum wage applies at the bottom. And what?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
And the other thing is that it's no different than you know, the individuals and the teams that we may be working with. All too often they jump into trying to, what is the solution, rather than discussing, okay, what is the current situation? I heard it best said by a manager. Here you go, Fred. This is for you. Can we problemate? I mean, obviously this is very bad English, but can we problemate a little bit before we solutionize? Can we problemate a little bit before we solutionize? Okay. You know, he was developer from back when they did, you know, they programmed things on punch cards where they actually had to think about a little bit about, what exactly do I want to hit the key on before it gets encoded on a piece of physical something that will then send the computer into an endless loop where the system operator has to push a big red button because I pushed the wrong thing on a card. They problemate more up here before they solutionize through here.
You made me want to respond, Marcelo. I'll try and
I'm
be
sorry.
quick. No, but I'm thinking, I definitely understand, the point of, there is the problem, we'll solve the problem, let's not go into the solution. And I think many times when we're saying solution, we're saying here is the construct ABC that people gave a name and they want to implement that thing. But and I can see how that is really bad in many cases. But borrowing from my experiences, I can't help but wonder, sometimes it's possible to spend too much time thinking about the problem and even thinking we know what the problem is. And there is something that is neither the solution or the problem, but it is like my end state. Like, what are the things I want to see happening? What are the things I don't want to see happening? I don't know if that has a name, but if I had this is maybe it's the coaching me talking too much, but like there is an ideal state or something that I want to see happening. And then we'll start from there. And we might even not spend that much time on what the problem is, but just trying to see how do we inch towards that new end state. So I'm not saying that this is easy or there's any magic formula, but I would say sometimes, it's neither the solution. It's also possible to spend too much time on the problem. And what if there's a different way of looking into things? So I guess that's what I'm throwing in.
I agree.
Yeah, and I
agree. Go
I
ahead. I'm
wanted
sorry,
to
Patty.
add a little bit to that because my mind was kind of going there as well. And I'm going to say the evil word project management. I think a solution has a fixed time in their minds, a fixed plan with a time, the scope and the budget. We can say this is what it is, and it makes people feel very comfortable. But to what you're saying there, Petula, is you have somebody that's hired to, let's talk about the problem. Well, how much time is that going to take? How much is that going to cost? And when you're operating a business, that probably makes people feel really uncomfortable. And I don't have a solution for that because I know the option A doesn't really ever work.
Yeah.
But like, what do we do about that?
Well, I would posit, start with what have you done already? Ask them questions about what they've done to explore what they consider the problem to be and what they have thought through about it. Okay. And when I start working with a new client, I actually go, and I'm so sorry that I jumped in. I just realized there were hands up. I'm so sorry.
And I'm just going to say,
goodness.
like, you're preaching to the choir. I'm just saying, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, they don't have our mindset.
Yeah.
That's
correct.
a challenge
You're already
for
thinking
them.
this through. So I actually kind of just come right out and say it. Okay. I've kind of thought through these sorts of things several times. I kind of have a way that I make sense of what's inside of your head, since I'm not psychic. Otherwise, I would have pulled the lottery numbers out of somebody's head already. And can I explore what you're thinking with you for a little while? I promise it won't take very long, but I need to understand some of the things that you already are carrying around inside of your noggin. And so kind of setting the frame of conversation right from the beginning helps. Okay. And then obviously you got to have enough self-awareness to where you can detect their exploration fatigue, as I like to call it. Because they will get to that fatigued level where I don't want to think about this anymore, Marcelo. Why does it hurt when I think about what the problem is? And then you got to stop them. And that's your own self-awareness kicking in, because you're like, no, now you're not helping, Marcelo. You need to stop. You're not helping.
Metaphor for our listeners, Marcelo, in this, which is like the client is inside the pickle jar. They can't read the label. So but it's possible to overstay our welcome there. So they can't read the label. We have to find something else to help them.
Yeah. And my apologies to Mike and Mark, who've been so patiently waiting.
Oh, good. Obviously, it's great conversation. Yeah, if you don't mind me jumping in, I hope I'm not talking too much. I never can keep track of how many times I've tried to interject. Kind of going back a little bit to something you said, Petula, about, well, what's the bit in between the problem and solution, and what's the thing we're trying to find? And I hate to again just plug it back to dysfunction mapping, but it's the thing that I'm trying to do to solve that problem, and it's why my middle point in that process is the thing that I call purpose, because for me that's the bit that's between problem and solution. It's purpose. It's why, like whether they've articulated a problem or whether they've articulated what they think is a predefined solution, the reason they're doing it is to fulfill some purpose. And if you can instead focus on that purpose, like what is it that we hope to gain by doing something, and agree on that, then your actions become no longer about implementing some fixed approach, but rather about helping people to understand and to fulfill that purpose in whatever way you can. And that just feels like a much better kind of cohesive thing for people to organize around than either the problem or the solution. And I do sometimes wonder if I shot myself in the foot by calling dysfunction mapping, because it sounded catchier, and that's kind of what I went with. But really, it's purpose mapping. That's kind of the thing that it's aiming to do, is connect the dysfunctions and the symptoms to purpose. Why the hell do we even care? Why should anyone listen to us and change? And I think, again, throw dysfunction mapping in the bin if you need to, but that mindset for me is what separates the really great coaches and scrum masters from the newer or less experienced ones.
But Mike, that's what even I felt, and that's what even I was thinking when Petula spoke about it. Exactly the same thing, the dysfunction mapping, which bridges this gap. So go all out when you want to just plug in dysfunction mapping, by all means. So do not stop yourself from doing that. So Mark?
Yes, thank you. All of this actually really resonates with me so much, and it made me bring up these things about actually when you talked about what kicked this off, Jim Highsmith and Agile, what it's going to be. This was great, and I would like to echo that Mike and the empirical ways of working is what will help us uncover those better ways of working, and that's what it's all about. But that's actually from a tangible perspective, and I just want to remind us that we are amazing because we are humans, and we're trying to navigate change. We're trying to navigate organizational ways of working, and we're trying to bring better ways of working, and helping people to see the purpose, what we're trying to achieve. And this is definitely the perspective that is important, that actually talks to people. And that's where I come to the word people. Meet your people.
Preach, brother, preach.
No, meet them. Meet them where they are. And this came up also, which was like, actually, I wanted to get transparency on what have you done? Where are you? Where are you wanting to go? Okay, and all these words about state, a specific state of agility. I'd like to remind us all here that, it's all about the people and actually getting better. Okay, there is problem solving. Definitely, we need to solve those problems, and that actually brought up another thing in me: is that we do a lot of problem solving in retrospectives, and sometimes we need to think about what we're doing good to do it great, and what we can do better because we're good. Because sometimes, this is what Jeff Watts shared as an alternative, is that if you focus on the good, all the bad will just go away. If you focus on getting better, on and seeing results on what you can do, then you can get better. So I think one of the most successful times that I've actually had in the Agile world is actually when I came in, I met people where they are. I actually organically worked through the organization, meeting people where they are, trying to respond to their needs. Maybe it wasn't an Agile response. It wasn't like, I've got a solution for you. It's like, what do you need? What can I do? And when we're serving that organization, they see that I'm useful. And when I'm useful, then I actually get a voice, I get heard, I get respected, I get understood. I'm seen, heard, respected, and understood. So I think the biggest challenge that we have, us, to drive forward in this world is not to change Agile, okay, or change people, or bring these things, is actually uncovering these better ways of actually finding that serenity of working together and achieving those goals. So I just wanted to add those few things in there, which is, just remember, we're all humans and we're all brilliant.
Wow. Yes, Julie, before we bring the last question, your perspective, Julie.
I just have to say that was really so beautiful and just really well stated, Mark. I appreciate that. And I think when it comes down to it, who's going to make the change? It's not us who's coming in, right? It's the people who are in the organization and who are going to stay in the organization and who are moving forward. So I think if you can't build that connection and that partnership and that collaboration, then anything you do is going to be really short-lived.
That's a great perspective, Julie. So you always have a different perspective. As I always tell you, you definitely bring the different perspective to look at things in a different lens altogether. Yes, that's what worth thinking. I mean, who are going to bring this change, right? It's us. I mean, we as an agile coaches, we are only going to partner with them in bring out the best things out of them. And yes, it's the people who are working in the system is who is going to bring this change. So it's all of us together. So that's a beautiful point, Julie. So before we close this, one last question, and this is what I would say most of the audiences would love to know from all of you is that what is your source of learning or keep yourself on toes, and how do you self learn so much? So what is your source of learning? Anyone would like to go?
I would love to start off with this one. I hate to say it, but I love putting myself in more dysfunctional situations, because I feel that that is where I can do the most learning, and it is where I can try and foster the most amount of change. Because as we all know, it just takes one person to start that change. So when you get into an environment where things are dysfunctional, and you happen to work with or partner with somebody that allows them to see the light, so to speak, then they will move on to start and create that ripple effect of change. So being in those types of situations, I find, has the most value for learning. And coming from a technical background, I used to be all about, okay, let's do labs, let's do courses. But now coming into this domain, I found that the best way to learn is to get in there with the people that are having these problems and starting to understand what their issues are, because chances are they're not the only ones with that problem. There's others with that problem too. And so if we can learn from each other on the problems that we're having and trying and be curious to finding those solutions, I think that's the best way to learn.
So I totally agree with that, Anthony. I was just so mine kind of follows on from that. So I'd love to add my thoughts.
Go on.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's just that, so 100% totally agree. Like throwing yourself into where the challenge is the best way to understand the difference between theory and reality, I guess, is how I think of it. But the thing that may be unique to me, I don't know if this is how other people feel, but I also always need to talk things through with someone. Like I'm not a person that can just think internally and come to solutions. I need to articulate it to others, and that's why I love talking to you all. And that's actually what got me started on LinkedIn in the first place, because when we went into lockdown, and I'd been so used to having a team of other coaches and Scrum Masters around me that I could just be like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, or this is what I think, and then have that response. Instead, I turned LinkedIn into my place where I could throw things away. And in particular, so I'd like a call out because so Julie and Dave, two of my favorite people in the world, for whenever I post something, I can rely on them to give me a slightly alternate take or something, something that I haven't thought of. And what they might not know, or what other people might not know, is that that's exactly how my learning process works. And so I've gained so much from that process, because while I don't often just outright say, yeah, you were right about this thing, just the fact that we can have that conversation gets me thinking about something new. And I think if you can find people that challenge you in that way, in that respectful way, to offer like slightly different viewpoints, you will learn so much more than you ever will from just that like purely echo chamberish, everyone agrees on everything, which some people try to cultivate. And I think as a community, especially this group, are not that type. So
really, really nice. I love this. And what I wanted to bounce on, and it actually came from the question as well that Ramya shared with us, is yeah, being in those if you be in those difficult situations, that is where you have the most effect. A lot of people look for I want to actually be in a great Scrum team that know everything. That way I can actually be part of the brilliance. And that's great. There are a lot of people like that, and it's okay. But I'm like you. I actually want to be there where there is need of help. And like I say, what I've learned about doing that is about myself. Okay, I've had to learn to look in the mirror. I've had to learn about kindness. I've had to learn about kindness to myself, because a lot of the problems that I've had in imposter syndrome, and me and Antoni, we had a great chat going back about a year about imposter syndrome, and it's on my YouTube. You can look at it. Antoni, thank you so much for that. And it was really brilliant. It's about being kind to yourself. If you can be more kinder to yourself, then you've got more kindness to give to others. And this is about meeting people where they are. If you can be kind to them, you can actually create that trust with them to actually be able to help them. And so this is what I just wanted to add. Just remember, please be kind to yourself.
I'll build on Mark. Thanks for that, Mark. I was going to say there's only one thing that's woo-woo that I say, and it's related to that, which is, learning about yourself. And that's not that woo-woo, I know. But I would say a lot of the times, especially in the world of Agile, we think that we go and we do, and and it's always the otherness. And in many times, it's actually about ourselves and how you show up, the things that we don't do, the things that we do. And my favorite way has changed over the years. And currently, for the past couple of years, I would say has been mentoring, and both mentoring and especially getting a lot of mentoring. I have free and paid, I pay a lot of money to be in touch with very good people. I love being mentored by people who are 10 times where I am today. And I would encourage people to really go this far, where do you read it? What is your 10 times better, 10 times different in whatever part of yourself that you feel that you need to grow to tackle the challenges that you do want to challenge, and go after those people and have the real conversations with them, because you can learn from success of others. Imagine if everybody had to burn their hands before they understand that don't touch the stove when it's on. You actually can learn that without burning your hands. So that's my add on this.
Okay, thanks Petula for that. Would like to go next? Maybe Patty, if you want.
Sure, I'll go. I think very, very similar to what some folks have said is constantly putting yourself in more and more challenging situations and staying calm and having faith in yourself that you can figure it out, so to speak. Raising your hand for, to work with a new team or something that you perceive as probably beyond your skill set, and having the courage to take it and then say, you know what, I'm going to grow into this and it's going to be okay. And I think it's just constantly pushing yourself out of your comfort zone more and more and more that builds that, I guess, that faith in yourself, that no matter what situation you're put into, if you go about it the right way and not go in there with a solution, but how can I help these folks, you will always be successful.
Yeah, Anthony. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to build on that, Patty, because we all love to find that metaphorical cozy fuzzy blanket, right? We all want to sit in that situation, and it's natural. We're human, as Mark pointed out. But when we start becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, that's where the most growth is. And there's a lot of new people that I have seen that have started in this industry, and they're looking for that easier way. But guess what? There is no easy way. This is a difficult role to play in any organization, because we're there to help not only solve problems, but we're also there to help model what does a good leader look like. How do we grow? Because I'm a coach doesn't mean that I don't have coach or coaches for that matter. Like to Petula's point, I spend thousands of dollars getting coached because we all need to grow, and I found that, getting that perspective from other people is so helpful. So yeah, being comfortable in being uncomfortable is the best way to grow and the best way to learn.
Yes, absolutely. Getting into a situation which maybe is the most challenging one, which we have never experienced. I think that is the best opportunity for us to learn, right? Yeah, Julie wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just would want people to know, at least it's been normal for me, and based on what I'm hearing here, I think it's normal for others, even if you're an experienced coach, to have those moments where you go, why am I even here? Like, and then, yeah, you have to be humble, or you will be humbled. Either way, there's some humility coming into it. And then you really gotta start listening and say, okay, maybe this environment is different. Maybe it's not as friendly to the Agile ideas as I thought, but how can I make a difference? What is my value here? And even learning from things, not having that arrogance, like I've been in a project that is really from a very traditional background, and I didn't come from a traditional Agile or project management background to begin with. And it's like, okay, well, what can I learn about project management that might actually be helpful to me moving forward? So you just have to be willing to be open, even when you find yourself in those really challenging situations where things are different than you thought.
Absolutely. I have a very different takeaway. I mean, I have always this question when people say I've come from an agile project management. I still believe that we still come from an agile space. So why do we differentiate saying that we come from an agile project management, and when we are differentiating ourselves with a Scrum Master and Agile coach? I know this is not relevant to the question that we have, but yeah, would anyone like to talk about that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I came from fashion, so I don't know what everyone else is talking about project management.
Yeah.
Maybe I misunderstood the question, but I did a book club with Gunther Verren, and one of the things that he wrote in his book is the future of Scrum. The future state of Scrum will not be called Scrum, and that's actually just the paradigm shift to that. There won't be anything else. It will be actually the way of working, and it's maybe a bit focused on Scrum, but what I learned from that is that, we will at some point actually, and this is my hope, this is my goal, this is my dream, that one day everybody's going to be happy at work, they're going to be engaged, they're going to be motivated, they're going to be doing things, and they're just going to be getting on with the job and delivering. And this is what it's all about. And so in the end, it doesn't matter what you want to call it, okay? We're just going to do it. And so all these things are just going to be little tools and things that we may use, but it's just going to be, well, a goal, a dream, something that we can do.
Yeah. To kind of answer Vivek's question, I think it's a matter of attitude. it's what most folks, and by the way, I want to be perfectly clear, I am a recovering project manager. Okay. The first step toward healing is acceptance. So there you go. Yeah, thank you. So putting it out there, it's a difference of attitude, Vivek. It's not a difference of mindset so much as attitude. Okay. I kind of take the Carl Jung approach. It's not what you say you'll do, it's what you're actually doing. It's not a mindset. A mindset equates to nothing if your hands aren't acting, if your feet aren't acting. You know, I think about the act of walking. The act of walking is actually called controlled imbalance, because your bones really aren't the ones, you know, running the show. It's your muscles. Your bones are there to give your muscles a frame of reference for your body to move against. That's all. Okay. And so I think going into the future, what it is the demonstration of the attitude that we carry put into action is what the future really could and should be. It's, as Mark pointed out, the future of Scrum is Scrum, even if it's not called Scrum. Okay, the future of flow is flow, even if it's not called flow. The future of Agile is Agile, even if it's not called Agile. That one was for you, Antoni. Okay, you know, because obviously, and not to spoiler alert it, but you know, I probably am going to put a little post that shows how companies react when you say the word Agile these days. You know, that's likely to scare a few people. So there you go.
Yes. Yeah, maybe Dave, if you would like to share your thoughts.
Okay, this is going back to the original question of what is your source of learning, correct?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
I just want to check that we were back on the same page and I hadn't
Or maybe,
actually
yeah,
missed
if
something
you
in the
want to
interlude.
share, yeah. Yes, yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, well, I was actually taking note as others were talking. Okay, so when you first asked the question, what is your greatest source of learning or your current source of learning? I immediately just typed in people. I thought it was a pretty simple one to do. But the more that people spoke, I thought, yeah, I'm being a bit disingenuous here. I'm not really expanding on that. But I'm mindful of a phrase that Bill Gates said when he said, your most dissatisfied customers are your greatest source of learning. Now, from there's two things. Number one, your biggest cock-ups. You know, nobody ever learnt anything by getting it right first time. So in a lot of the materials, a lot of the training materials I write, I deliberately engineer mistakes here and there. I don't know if anyone's ever read Larry Wall's book on Perl, on learning Perl the camel, but he writes the questions quite ambiguously. So there's several different answers, and then he gives you the different answers. He said, if you thought I want you to do this, then this is how you do it. But if you thought the question said that, that's how I do it. So I do that deliberately to get people to understand how to burn their fingers in a training environment. So when they go into a live production environment, they'll recognize that. Now, I also think, coming back to what Patty talked about stretch and grow, don't stay in your comfort zone. Every time you go into stretch, your comfort zone starts to expand. And I think also, Antoni, you alluded to that by you actually practiced 15 times before you went out on stage. Well, you did that so that when you go on stage, this isn't panic, this isn't stretch, it becomes comfort. And that's something I do as a trainer. I keep practicing a few things over, and then I think after the second or third run, I'm quite happy with it. I don't need my notes anymore. And then as soon as something different happens, suddenly I'm alive, because it's not the wheel and, oh shit, yes, how does that work? No idea, let's have a go. And it's those kind of glimmer moments where I start to learn things as well. So I say this about the people that I mentor or I'm a mentor to, that I learn a great deal from them. Okay. I'll also return back to something that Mark mentioned about the places you visit. So I can't quite remember. Oh, sorry, Mike talked about enjoying some of the challenging comments and responses to posts. And we also talked about when we go around various people, we start to learn. So Antoni said about, I want to go to the most dysfunctional places, not the place where they got it perfect. You know, you don't build a hospital where everyone's healthy, or maybe they're healthy because the hospital's actually doing a damn good job. It's that kind of scenario. Now, but what I found is all the times I've been around teaching many companies, I start to notice a pattern. And majority of times, the pattern was always the problem is people. It was never process. and it was never products. But the problem wasn't always people created it. It was down to people are the solution. So I'm not saying, look, Mike, this is the problem you created. It's about, Mike, you've got the skills to actually fix this problem. Somebody else cocked up, but can you fix it? And that's what I quite liked. I quite like jumping into those places where they had these problems. And I thought, this sounds like something with X person, or this sounds like something where I met with that other company. And I'll bring forward those ideas. And those are the same things I've been doing with mentees about, look, this is what I've learned from other people. You may learn the same thing from there. And I think everything in the world is not completely unique, but on the other hand, it's not completely identical. So sometimes you hear about something, you think, oh yeah, I know the fix of that. And then they suddenly go, and we're using Node.js. Hang on a minute. Start again. What was that? Okay, yeah. And we've actually brought Safe in, and we're using the prototype framework. Right, shit. Okay. Sod it, let's have a go. Let's find out. Let's play with it. You know, and it's just one of those things of, you think it's just bog standard problem and you want to apply a solution, and suddenly you realize it isn't. And you start to learn that maybe what you thought was a pretty simple problem actually could be a bit more complex, and that everything you've encountered so far has actually been fairly simple, but there's a lot more complex ones out there and you didn't see them before. You have now seen them. So I think that's when we realize that maybe we are quite limited in what we see. Okay, right. I'll shut up now if anyone wants to jump in.
Yeah,
I'd
Petula,
like to
go
just
ahead.
add something. I'm trying to understand. I felt like I had a very strong response to when you were saying a few things, Dave. And I guess I was trying to recollect, past memories of yes, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I think you can learn a lot, and I mean a lot, from the success of others. And that is a great way to shortcut your own success and double down on the things that you already do that are great. You're never going to be as great as the thing that you suck the most. Like, I find that really hard to believe that you can grow so much on the stuff that you're really, really bad. It does happen. Wouldn't say that's the majority, but I guess what I really felt like responding strongly was that, yes, throw ourselves out there with caution, because in the type of roles that we tend to occupy, we can make situations worse. If we don't understand the level of facilitation or coaching that is required in certain situations, we can come in with all good faith and just make a mess out of everything, and sometimes it's not even super harsh, but it is deflating. So if you never ever seen big room planning or big room conversations taking place, and you just read this little blog thing, I have a blog, but don't just go read my blog and implement those things the first try. You're probably going to have people very confused and never trusting that big room anything works. So just throwing it up there, like, I agree with a lot of what you said, tying in with Antoni's before, like, have some preparedness and a smaller arena, grow your arena, grow your comfort in your arena together. I guess that's what I would add.
Wow.
Okay, thanks, Petula, for that inputs. And again, I know we have exceeded our time box. I know that there was a conversation on to the chat, and I ignored it. So we had blocked this time for 60 minutes, but it's more than 2 hours that we are into this conversation, and we were definitely enjoying this conversation. We wanted to continue doing this, but since we cannot expect you all to be into this conversation, with that, I would just like to start with saying a big thank you to each one of you to spend your morning Saturday with us to have this conversation, to make it more insightful for our listeners, for everyone else over here. And we really enjoyed this. And I know that for most of the conversation, I and Ramya were quiet, and the conversation was all for you to to drive it. So really enjoyed it. Loved being part of this conversation, and thank you everyone for joining in and making this a wonderful podcast for us. So Ramya, you want to add anything?
No, I have only gratitude and thanks to give in this Thanksgiving week, and I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for accepting this invite for this discussion. I really loved to be fly on this wall for sure. I mean, I so much desperately wanted to do this, bring everyone together, and I was just hoping when would I get an opportunity and how do I do it. And honestly, I have drawn this inspiration from there is this concept called as Actors Roundtable that we have in India, and I'm a big film buff. So I thought that it would be a great idea to get agile coaches and hopefully Scrum Masters or other agile practitioners and have a conversation like this so that we would learn to know you guys in person, the person behind the agile coach or the scrum master. And it was great learning. And there are so many takeaway points from this conversation itself. So thank you so much for coming over, spending your 2 hours of Saturday with us and sharing so many insights and wonderful ideas. So looking forward to more such conversations. And thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you so much for watching this episode patiently till the end. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll meet you again in the next episode. Till then, if you like our podcast show, then do like, share, subscribe, and let us know your feedback in the comment section. You can also listen to the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. Thank you.